What if the heaviest burden you carry is not a physical weight, but a ghost? Have you ever noticed how a person can be entirely absent from your daily life, yet completely dominate your mind? There is a strange, quiet agony in waking up every morning and feeling an absence before you even open your eyes. The relationship is over in reality, but in your head, the conversations are still happening. The arguments are still being fought. The hope is still quietly, desperately waiting for a different ending. Most people do not realize that the deepest suffering does not come from the goodbye itself. It comes from the refusal to let the goodbye be final. We trap ourselves in an invisible loop, holding on to something that no longer exists, secretly believing that if we just hold on tight enough, we can somehow change the past or bridge the distance. If you have ever felt emotionally exhausted by your own memories, if you are tired of living your life orbiting an empty space, this is for you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see this pain forever and gently guide you back into the light of your own life. Section 1. The phantom weight of what was. In Buddhist wisdom, there is a profound understanding of how we create our own endless suffering. It is rooted in attachment, but attachment is not just about deeply loving someone. Attachment is the mind's demand that things remain exactly as we wish them to be. It is the refusal to accept the turning of the wheel, the reality that seasons change, that people leave, and that certain chapters must close. When a relationship ends, the physical connection breaks, but the mental attachment, that is a knot we keep tying tighter every single day through our own thoughts. Imagine standing in a quiet room, tightly gripping a heavy, frayed rope. The rope extends out the door and disappears into a thick fog. You are pulling with all your strength. Your hands are blistered, your muscles are burning, and your heart is racing as you try to pull the other person back into the room. But what you cannot see through the fog is that the other end of the rope was dropped a long time ago. There is no one there. You are not pulling them back. You are only pulling against the weight of your own resistance. Think about your own life. How much of your vital energy do you spend pulling on that rope, replaying old conversations in the shower, checking to see if they are online, wondering if they feel the same heavy silence that you do? You are feeding a ghost. You are giving your precious life force to an illusion of a relationship that only exists in the theater of your mind. Ask yourself, what are you still trying to hold on to? Is this constant remembering bringing you closer to peace, or is it feeding your sorrow? Pause, breathe, feel the exhaustion in your heart. You are allowed to be tired, but you must also realize that you have the power to stop pulling. You do not have to figure out how to be perfectly healed today. You only need to notice the rope in your hands. Let the memory rise. Look at it without judgment, and slowly, consciously, begin to loosen your grip. You do not have to pull anymore, because peace is not something you find by dragging the past into the present. It is found in the quiet courage to let the rope fall. But dropping that rope is only the first step, and this is where the next truth begins. Because often, we are not just holding on to a person, we are holding on to an unwritten future. Section 2. The illusion of the unfinished story. What if the hardest thing to let go of is not the person, but the potential? Here is a truth few want to face. We do not just grieve what was lost in the past, we grieve the future we had already built in our minds. Think about how often you replay the ending of the relationship. You scrutinize the final conversations, searching for hidden meanings. You rehearse what you wish you had said differently. You imagine a day when they suddenly understand your value and return to make things right. You believe the story was interrupted. You feel as though you are walking around with a half-finished script, desperately waiting for the other person to walk back onto the stage. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is understanding the danger of clinging to mental formations the ideas, expectations, and projections we construct in our minds. In Buddhist thought, much of our agony arises because we fall in love with an illusion. We become attached to a concept of how our life should unfold, rather than accepting how life is unfolding. The human mind craves a perfect, symmetrical ending. When reality does not provide one, the mind traps itself in an endless loop of what-ifs and if-onlys. Imagine reading a beautiful, captivating book. You are deeply invested in the journey. But suddenly, halfway through a chapter, the words stop. The rest of the pages are completely blank. Instead of closing the book and walking outside to feel the sun, you sit alone in a dark room, staring at the empty white paper. You wait for the ink to magically appear. You try to write the rest of the story in your mind, over and over again, refusing to accept that the author has put down the pen. This is what we do when we desperately chase closure in our modern lives. We think closure must come from an external source. We wait for a late-night text message. We hope for a final meeting where everything is perfectly explained. We believe that if we just get one more honest conversation, the pain will suddenly make sense. But staring at the blank pages does not write a new chapter. It only steals the precious time you have right now. Ask yourself, what story are you still trying to finish? Are you waiting for an apology that may never arrive? Are you pausing your actual life for a fictional ending? Is this exhausting quest for closure actually the very thing keeping you locked in the past? You do not need their words to find peace. Pause, breathe, observe your mind's desperate need to figure everything out, and gently tell it to rest. You can give yourself the closure you seek simply by accepting that the story is over. Put the book down. You must accept that an unfinished ending is still an ending. The chapter was exactly as long as it was meant to be, but putting the book down forces you to look up. It forces you to step out of the illusion and back into the flow of reality. And this is where the next truth begins, because life refuses to stand still, even when a part of our heart remains completely frozen in time. Section 3. The River of Impermanence. What if the very nature of life is that nothing was ever meant to be frozen in time? Here is the truth that breaks our hearts, yet holds the key to our ultimate freedom. The pain you feel is not just the loss of a person. It is the violent collision between your desire for permanence and the universe's rule of constant change. We want the beautiful moments to last forever. We want the people we love to stay exactly as they are, exactly where they are, right beside us. But the tighter you hold onto a passing moment, the more it hurts when it inevitably slips away. Think about how much energy you spend wishing things could just go back to the way they used to be. You replay the beginning of the relationship, the golden days when everything felt secure, understood, and bright. You try to force your present reality to match a faded memory. You feel betrayed by the distance that grew between you, as if change itself is a cruel, personal punishment aimed directly at your heart. In Buddhist thought, this is the teaching of impermanence. Buddhism reminds us that everything in this world, every joy, every sorrow, every person, and every connection is in a continuous state of arising and passing away. When we expect a relationship to remain unchanged, we are fighting the fundamental law of the universe. Suffering is born in the quiet, agonizing gap between how things actually are and how we desperately demand them to be. Imagine standing knee-deep in a powerful, beautiful river. The water is cool and clear, and for a moment, you hold it in your cupped hands. It feels perfect. But then, terrified of losing it, you clench your fists tightly to trap the water inside. What happens? The water instantly slips through your fingers, returning to the current, leaving your hands entirely empty. If you had just let your hands rest open in the stream, you could have felt the water as it flowed past. But by trying to possess the river, you lost it completely, And now you stand in the current, exhausted, fighting the flow of the water itself. In your own life, how often do you try to trap the river? When someone's feelings change, when a season of life naturally concludes, we panic. We build dams in our minds. We try to force someone to stay when their current is already pulling them in a different direction. We drown in our own resistance to reality. Ask yourself, are you exhausting yourself trying to hold back the river? What are you truly afraid will happen if you simply let the current carry away what is already leaving? Is this resistance bringing you peace or feeding your fear? Pause, breathe. Observe the fear of change without letting it consume you. You cannot stop the water from flowing, but you can choose to stop fighting it. Let the feeling of loss rise. Acknowledge its presence, and then let it pass like water moving over smooth stones. Open your hands. Let the river be the river, because peace is not found by building walls to stop the water. It is found by learning to float. But accepting that the river moves on does not automatically heal the spaces left behind. And this is where the next truth begins. Because sometimes, long after the water has gone, we continue to give our love to things that can no longer grow. Section 4. Stop watering a dead tree. What if the love you keep giving is slowly draining your own life? Here is a difficult truth we often hide from ourselves. The tighter you hold, the more you suffer, yes. But the more you give to what is gone, the more you empty yourself. We confuse stubbornness with loyalty. We believe that if we just keep trying, keep loving, keep hoping, we can breathe life back into something that has already ended. Think about how much of your daily energy is spent tending to a ghost. You draft messages you will never send, or worse, you send them into a void that offers nothing but cold silence. You monitor their life from afar, looking for signs that they miss you. You pour your emotional strength into understanding why they left, why they changed, why they could not love you the way you needed. You are exhausting your own spirit to keep their memory alive. Buddhist wisdom teaches the profound importance of right effort and recognizing the reality of what is in front of us. It reminds us that while compassion and love are beautiful, pouring them into a vessel of blind attachment only breeds sorrow. In Buddhist thought, true wisdom is seeing things exactly as they are, not as we desperately wish them to be. When we refuse to see that a season has passed, our well-intentioned love becomes a quiet form of self-destruction. We blind ourselves to the present moment because our eyes are locked on a past that cannot be resurrected. Imagine a devoted gardener standing in a quiet, barren field. In the center stands a single tree. It has lost all its leaves. Its branches are brittle, and its roots have completely dried up. The winter has long passed, but the tree will never bloom again. Yet, every single morning, the gardener walks miles to the well, carrying heavy buckets of water. Their back aches, their hands bleed. They pour every drop of water over the dead roots, weeping, begging for just one green leaf to appear. They are so fixated on this one lifeless tree that they do not notice the rest of their garden. The beautiful flowers, the fertile soil, the new seeds waiting to sprout, all of it is dying of thirst. The gardener is slowly withering away, pouring their life force into wood that can no longer grow. In your own life, how often are you this gardener? When you constantly check a screen waiting for their name to appear, you are carrying that heavy bucket. When you spend hours agonizing over how to win back someone who has already closed the door, you are pouring water on dead roots. You are giving the most precious, vital parts of your soul to an absence. And all the while, your own life, your own friendships, your own passions, and your own peace are slowly dying of thirst. Ask yourself, where are you pouring your precious energy today? Are you quietly hoping a dead branch will suddenly blossom? What parts of your own beautiful life are drying up because you are giving all your water to someone who is no longer there? Pause. Breathe. Feel the heavy bucket in your hands. You have carried it long enough. You are allowed to set it down. Observe the urge to fix, to reach out, to hope, and gently withdraw your energy. Do your part, then release the outcome. You do not have to prove your love by suffering. Stop trying to force life where it has naturally left, because true peace does not demand that you empty your own well for a mirage. It is time to turn around and look at the fertile soil beneath your own feet. But stepping away from that tree leaves you standing in a vast, unfamiliar space. And this is where the next truth begins. Because when you stop living your life for an absence, you suddenly realize you have lost your own center of gravity. What if you have been living your entire life walking in circles around an empty space? Here is a difficult truth that we rarely want to admit. When someone leaves, the deepest pain is not just their physical absence. It is the sudden, terrifying realization that your entire world was built to revolve around them. The tighter you held on, the more you let them become your center of gravity. Think about how you move through your days right now. You still make decisions based on what they might think. You avoid certain places because the memory is too loud. You secretly hope your successes will somehow reach their ears. Even though they are gone, their absence has become a massive, invisible presence in your daily life. You are planning your days around a ghost. You are letting an empty chair command the whole room. In Buddhist wisdom, there is a powerful teaching about taking refuge. Buddhism reminds us that when we place the core of our happiness, our identity, or our peace entirely in the hands of another human being, we build our house on shifting sand. We make ourselves entirely vulnerable to the harsh winds of impermanence. By allowing someone else to be the absolute center of our existence, we slowly become homeless in our own hearts. When they inevitably leave or change, we do not just lose them, we lose ourselves. Imagine a small, quiet moon revolving faithfully around a bright, massive star. The moon's entire path, its rhythm, and its light are dictated by the gravitational pull of that one star. But one day, the star suddenly vanishes from the sky. The light is gone, the pull is gone. Yet, out of habit and fear, the little moon continues to fly. In the exact same tight circle through the freezing dark, it exhausts itself tracing a path around a vast, empty void. It is so fixated on the missing star that it never realizes the terrible, beautiful truth. The gravity is gone. The moon is actually free to fly through the infinite sky, to explore new galaxies, to find its own path. But it chooses to stay trapped in the ghost of an old orbit. In your own modern life, how often are you this moon? When you wake up and your very first thought is of them, you are tracing that dark circle. When you scroll through social media, endlessly searching for pieces of their new life, you are choosing to orbit a void. You feel lost, not because you are truly lost, but because you are trying to navigate by a star that has already burned out. Ask yourself, are you actually living your life today, or are you just orbiting their memory? What would your days feel like if you bravely decided to become the center of your own universe again? Is this invisible gravity bringing you peace or keeping you trapped in the dark? Pause, breathe, feel your feet on the solid ground. You do not belong to their absence. Let the heavy feeling of the void rise, observe it, and gently pull your energy back into your own body. Bring your awareness home. You are the sky, not just a rock trapped in a circle. You do not have to keep orbiting a space that has nothing left to give you, because true peace is not found by waiting for a missing star to return. It is found by remembering how to generate your own light. But taking your power back requires you to look directly at the reality of what happened, without the comforting stories we tell ourselves. And this is where the next truth begins. Because the mind will desperately fight to deny the ending. until we learn how to sit quietly with the pain of what is. Section 6. The practice of radical acceptance. What if the sharpest pain you feel is not the reality of the loss, but your complete refusal to accept it? Here is a truth that requires profound courage to face. We suffer not just because we are hurt, but because we constantly argue with reality. Think about the quiet, exhausting war happening inside your mind right now. You wake up and your first thought is, "This cannot be happening." You bargain with the universe. You convince yourself that this separation is just a temporary mistake, a misunderstanding that will eventually be corrected. You are fighting the absolute fact that the relationship has ended, secretly believing that if you surrender to the truth, the pain will entirely destroy you. You reject the present moment because the present moment is empty of them. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is the practice of seeing things exactly as they are. In Buddhist thought, much of our agony is created by our resistance to the truth. We are taught that peace does not come from forcing the external world to match our internal desires. It comes from dropping our weapons and bowing to what has already occurred. Acceptance is not an endorsement. It does not mean you are happy that they left or that the way they treated you was right. It simply means you stop demanding that the past be rewritten. Imagine a person caught in a sudden, freezing rainstorm in the middle of a field. Instead of pulling their coat tight, finding shelter, or simply accepting that they are going to get wet, they stand completely still. They look up at the dark sky and scream at the clouds to stop raining. They clench their fists, furious at the weather. Completely consumed by the unfairness of the storm, they use all their strength to fight the rain, but the sky does not care. It continues to pour. The screaming does not stop a single drop of water. It only leaves the person miserable, freezing, and entirely depleted of energy. In your modern life, how often do you stand in the emotional rain and scream at the clouds? When you stare at an empty room, consumed by the agonizing unfairness of their absence, you are fighting the rain. When you spend hours dissecting their words, trying to rationally understand how someone could simply walk away, you are demanding that the sky change its nature. You are choosing the profound exhaustion of denial over the simple, quiet discomfort of the truth. Ask yourself, how much of your daily suffering is simply an argument with what has already happened? What would actually happen to you if you stopped fighting the reality of this exact moment? Is your denial protecting you, or is it just prolonging the storm? Pause. Breathe. Notice the tension in your jaw and the tightness in your chest. That is the feeling of fighting reality. You can let it go. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. Say quietly to yourself, "This is how it is right now." Stop trying to force the sky to clear, because peace begins the exact second you surrender to what is. You do not have to love the rain, but you must accept that you are standing in it. But standing quietly in the rain eventually brings up the deeper hurts we have been trying to avoid. And this is where the next truth begins. Because sometimes we hold on to the pain because we do not know how to release the anger left behind. What if the anger you hold against them is the very lock keeping you inside your own prison? Here is a truth that goes against everything our wounded pride wants to hear. We often use resentment as a way to hold on. We think that if we finally let go of the anger, we lose them completely. Think about how often you replay the unfairness of the ending. You remember the exact way they left, the words they said, or the cold silence they gave instead of a real explanation. You stockpile these painful memories like weapons, waiting for a battle that is never going to happen. You believe that your anger is a form of justice. You think that as long as you stay mad, you are holding them accountable. You think your bitterness prevents them from getting away with it. But the truth is, your anger is not reaching them at all. it is only consuming you. A classic Buddhist teaching compares holding on to anger to grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the only one who gets burned. In Buddhist thought, forgiveness is not about validating a wrong. It is not about pretending that you were not deeply hurt. It is a profound act of non-attachment and self-mercy. It is the realization that tying your soul to the person who hurt you is a self-inflicted wound. Imagine a prisoner sitting alone in a cold, dark stone cell. The heavy iron door is shut tight, but right there, resting quietly in the palm of the prisoner's hand, is the key to the lock. The prisoner could walk free at any moment, step out into the warm sunlight, and breathe the fresh air. But they refuse to move. Instead, they sit in the freezing dark, staring fiercely at the door, furious and waiting. They are waiting for the person who locked them inside to come back, apologize, and open the door for them. They would rather suffer in the darkness and be right than use their own key and be free. In your own life, how often are you this prisoner? When you spend your evenings mentally drafting arguments to prove how much they damaged you, you are sitting in the dark cell. When you hold on to bitterness because it feels stronger than grief, you are refusing to use the key. They are out in the world, moving forward. They are not feeling your anger. You are the only one trapped in the cold. Haunted by a ghost you refuse to evict. Ask yourself, are you using your anger to stay connected to someone who is already gone? What would actually happen if you stopped waiting for an apology and simply unlocked the door yourself? Is this resentment bringing you peace, or is it just keeping the ghost alive? Pause. Breathe. Notice the heat of the anger in your chest, the tension in your hands. You do not have to forgive them for their sake. Forgive them so that you can finally put down the burden. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. You can acknowledge the unfairness without letting it become your cage. Drop the hot coal, turn the key, because peace is not a reward you receive for winning an argument. It is the quiet, beautiful freedom of walking away from the fight completely. But when the anger finally fades, you are left with something even more intimidating than the ghost. And this is where the next truth begins. Because releasing them leaves a vast, quiet space in your life, and you must finally learn how not to fear the empty room. Section 8. The beauty of the empty room. What if the emptiness you are so terrified of is actually the exact space you need to finally breathe? Here is a truth that goes against our deepest human instincts. We are absolutely terrified of empty spaces. When you finally drop the rope, when you stop fighting the river, and when you release your anger, a sudden silence falls over your life. The weekends feel too long. Your home feels too quiet. You feel a massive, heavy void where their presence or even the familiar pain of their absence used to be. And in that quiet, you panic. You rush to fill the silence. You scroll endlessly on your phone. You bury yourself in work, or you seek out hollow distractions just to avoid sitting alone with the quiet. We deeply believe that if a space in our life is empty, it means we are broken. We think we are missing something vital. In Buddhist wisdom, emptiness is not something to be feared. The concept of emptiness is entirely different from the heavy, aching loneliness we feel. Buddhism teaches that emptiness is actually pure, boundless potential. A bowl is only useful because of the empty space inside it. A window only lets in the light because it is clear. When the mind is finally empty of grasping, of heavy expectations, and of old ghosts, it becomes a fertile ground for the present moment to truly arrive. Emptiness is not a lack of life. It is the space where new life is allowed to grow. Imagine a beautiful room you have lived in for years, completely packed from floor to ceiling with heavy, dark, broken furniture. There is no room to walk, no room to dance, and barely any room to breathe. One day, All that heavy furniture is suddenly removed. At first, you stand in the doorway, terrified by the sheer size of the space. The room feels intensely bare and cold. But then, something miraculous happens. For the first time in years, the morning sunlight reaches all the way across the wooden floor. You feel a fresh breeze moving freely from one window to the other. You can finally stretch your arms out without hitting a wall. The room is not ruined because it is empty. It is finally free. In your modern life, how often do you view your current solitude as a punishment? When you find yourself sitting alone on a quiet evening, you treat the silence as if it is a tragic ending. You look at the empty room of your life and weep over the heavy, broken furniture that is no longer there. You are so focused on what is missing that you are entirely missing the sunlight pouring across your floor. Ask yourself, why are you rushing to fill this space? Are you terrified of the silence because it forces you to finally meet yourself? What if this quiet solitude is not a curse, but a profound invitation to rediscover who you are outside of their orbit? Pause. Breathe. Sit still in the quiet of this very moment. Do not reach for a distraction. Do not reach for a memory. Let the silence rise around you without rushing to fill it. You are entirely safe in this empty room, because true peace is not found by cluttering your life to avoid being alone. It is found by learning to make friends with the space you are in. But embracing this space is only the preparation for the greatest shift of all. And this is where the final truth begins. Because once you stop fearing the empty room, you can finally invite the rest of your life to step back inside. Section 9. Letting life meet you here. What if the very life you have been desperately waiting for is already here, simply waiting for you to notice it? Think back to the heavy, frayed rope we spoke of in the beginning. Think of the exhaustion of pulling, the quiet agony of waking up and immediately reaching for a ghost before your eyes even open. You have carried that phantom weight for so long that you forgot what it feels like to just stand freely on your own 2 feet. You have spent so many months, perhaps years, looking backward, that you missed the gentle sunrise happening right in front of you. The journey of letting go is not about forcing yourself to forget. It is not about erasing the beautiful love you gave, or pretending the ending did not break your heart. In Buddhist thought, true non-attachment is simply the quiet, powerful decision to stop living in a reality that no longer exists. It is the profound realization that you cannot hold the river in your hands. You cannot force a dead tree to bloom. You cannot live your entire precious life orbiting a missing star. You do not have to fight the rain anymore, and you certainly do not have to sit in a dark, locked cell when you are holding the key. When you finally decide to drop the rope, you might feel a brief moment of falling, but then you realize you are not falling at all. You are finally standing still. You realize that your value was never tied to their presence. Your worth was never dependent on their ability to stay. Buddhism reminds us that our true nature is already whole, already complete, exactly as it is. You do not need another person to provide external closure for you to be whole. You simply need to arrive, fully and completely, in this present moment. Imagine standing in the center of that beautiful, empty room we just discovered. The broken furniture is gone. The heavy curtains have been pulled entirely back. The morning light is pouring across the floor, warming your skin. You are no longer defined by the space someone else left behind. You are defined by the boundless potential of the space you have just reclaimed. The air is fresh. The silence is no longer lonely. It is deeply peaceful. Ask yourself one final time, are you ready to let the ghost go? Are you ready to stop searching for your reflection in a closed door and instead step outside to look at the vast, open sky above you? Pause, breathe, place a hand over your chest and feel the steady rhythm of your own heart. It is not beating for them. It is beating for you. The chapter ended, yes, but the book is still in your hands, and the remaining pages are crisp, white, and full of possibility. You are allowed to smile again. You are allowed to build a beautiful, vibrant life that does not orbit an absence. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.